All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, look, it's Keith, Mark, and Uncle Ted. We are celebrating truth, logic, and common sense on another Nightly Nuge. Keith, Mark, and Tim, and Josh, and everybody here, thank you so much. Everybody that celebrates this celebration of the American dream of standing up for what you believe in, thank you for your support. But Keith, we have a special guest on this morning that we're going to dedicate a lot of Nightly Nuges to, and he's a hero of yours and a hero of mine, and we're going to let the shining, blinding light of truth overwhelm the darkness for a great, whether he knows it or not, I'm sure he's been called this before, but Kyle Rittenhouse, welcome to the Nightly Nuge, Ted Nugent and Keith Mark Campfire. God bless you, son. How the hell are you doing?
I'm doing good, Ted. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Keith, I know you've got a lot of things you'd like to talk to Kyle about, because Nightly Nuge is about truth, logic, and common sense, which should be the source of justice in America. So we got a lot of points. And on today's Nightly Nuge, Keith, I'd like to focus on how Kyle is doing, because he was thrust into an ugly, ugly spotlight in the anti-justice system for on film purely instinctively and righteously defending himself. So I would like to start off, Keith, by asking Kyle, overall, when you found yourself in this position, exercising your pure instinct to self-defense at the age of 17, how old are you now, Kyle?
I'm 20.
And 3 years later, do you believe that you're managing and processing this era of your life in a healthy way? Because it can eat away at a guy. Is it eating away at you, or are you standing your ground today like you did on the streets of Kenosha?
You know, there's definitely days that it eats away at me, because it's like I'm still going through an ongoing legal battle. It's a constant fight. I'm facing litigation, and that just it prevents you in a way. Like, it has a little bit of a restraint on you from going off and like doing your own thing, because you're like, okay, I got to fight this lawsuit now. I got to relive what happened that night. And yeah, that's pretty much where it's at right now.
And Keith, you and I know that what we'd like to do is we'd like to spotlight conditions in America, especially those heinous, dark corruption and criminality by our government. Keith, you and I think would agree, and Keith, I'm going to let you comment, because the Nightly Nuge wouldn't be here without Keith Mark, that the Nightly Nuge celebrates the purest of good over evil, the purest of righteousness over criminality. Don't you believe, Keith, that what Kyle Rittenhouse did on that famous night in Kenosha, Wisconsin, is the manifestation of all the things that you and I try to take on here at the Nightly Nuge? Self-defense. If you don't have self-defense, you don't have anything. Keith, what would be your take with Kyle? Because you and I are gun guys, we're self-defense guys, we're justice guys. What an opportunity to shine the light on what Kyle Rittenhouse did.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Ted. And I just wonder, Kyle, does it ever bother you what appears to be this two-tier justice system? Then firsthand, you've witnessed an unprecedented attack against a young man like yourself for just simply exercising your Second Amendment right of self-defense. What's your take on all this two-tiered justice that seems to be going on, and particularly in your case?
Well, I've started noticing a standard. I've noticed a standard. If you don't fit their narrative, if you don't check the boxes that they have set up for you, you're going to get charged, even if you did nothing wrong. They're going to put you through hell and back, and pretty much take away your life, your freedom, and try to bury you under the prison, all for doing what was right and doing what you are allowed to do under the rule of law.
Yeah, and not only the rule of law, but the rule of instinct, the rule of purity, of righteousness, good over evil. You know, Keith, as an attorney, I would like Keith Mark's take on this. And Kyle, certainly you were in the, shall I say, stranglehold of a court system gone absolutely berserk when we have footage, Keith, of Kyle Rittenhouse being attacked by armed attackers with the pistols clear on footage. Keith and Kyle, you probably want to hear it framed thusly. How could a judge who has ascended to the position in that black robe to make judgments based on the constitutional and the rule of law in our society, how could a judge see the footage of Kyle Rittenhouse using deadly force to save his life on film, and the judge said, yeah, I think we can charge him with murder. Let's have this as a court case. Keith, is there hope for our justice system if a judge allows that?
Well, it's just like anything else, Ted. Corruption abounds in all walks. I mean, we've talked about some of the peers that you've had in the rock and roll industry that just are no good. The same is true no matter where you go with lawyers, judges, teachers, politicians. And unfortunately, Kyle found himself in a jurisdiction where there was an activist prosecutor and a willing participant judge that allowed this to go forward. We see the same thing going on in New York with the prosecutor there and a judge so far wanting to play ball. DC with the J6 people. I feel, Kyle, and I'd love to get your take on your upcoming Supreme Court judge race up there in Wisconsin, where it seems like your mainstream media is hiding some of soft on crime Janet's and kind of elder abuse background. Again, Ted, I think it's just part and parcel of where our society is going. But Kyle, what's your take on the justice system?
I think most of the power is in the prosecutor, because it's the judge's duty to say that the person gets a fair trial. Like, they aren't presented all of the facts until the trial, until the DA puts out their case and the defense lays out their case. And Judge Schrader, he did dismiss two of the counts from that night. He dismissed the gun and the curfew with prejudice, and then he just had to follow what his oath was to the people to ensure that I got a fair trial, which I believe he did. He yelled at the DA several times, because I don't know if you know this, but DA Banger violated my Fifth Amendment rights while I was on the stand, questioning my post-silence arrest and a bunch of other things. And he was not a fan of the DA. He was a good judge for the defense, and he followed the rule of law. And
so, I got to tell you, here at the Nightly Nuge, we try to cut through. Keith and I are dedicated to bring light to this dark times in America, and we really believe that your experience on the streets of Kenosha was as pure as God wanted mankind to function, that you saw danger and life-threatening conditions in I think your father's neighborhood up there, is that correct? Or your neighbors up there? Because you crossed the Illinois border to go there.
So I was actually in Kenosha. I worked in Kenosha. My father lived in Kenosha. I was asked to be there by a friend who was asked to be there by the car owners. We met with the car owners, and they wanted us to protect the business. And I was protecting the business by putting out fires and providing first aid.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, Keith, we're going to have Kyle on for a couple more nights here at the Nightly Nuge, because once again, I think the Kyle Rittenhouse moment in American justice history is the tip of the culture war turned spiritual war spear. And if a young man, then we're going to get into the gory details of how a 17-year-old was able to function like that and make such righteous decisions. Kyle, I would like to leave you on this first Nightly Nuge today with a vote of confidence that if you ever feel pressured and hurt, and you're going to, we all are, but stand strong, my friend. In fact, not just the vast majority of good Americans, all good Americans who know that good should always overcome evil. You manifested it at the age of 17, and in tomorrow's Nightly Nuge, we're going to find out how the hell you got that warrior mindset with your AR-15 and did the perfect thing of good over evil. So, Keith, I'll let you say adios, mofo, on tonight's Nightly Nuge and set it up for tomorrow night.
Yeah. Hey, Kyle, looking forward to having you back again tomorrow night. Like Ted said, we want to hear kind of what went through your mind tactically. And then if you'll stick around for a third night, I'd like our listeners to find out who Kyle Rittenhouse really is, find out a little bit about what makes you tick, which not a lot of the media is spending time on. So tomorrow night, we're going to talk about Kyle Rittenhouse and your tactics right here on the Nightly Nuge, where there is no fake news.
Adios, mofo.